So they're pushing digital IDs again. And here's Tony Blair, the former prime minister of UK. Are you the prime minister of UK or are you the prime minister of England? I don't know.
Okay, I thought.
It's got to be the UK, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Telegraph. Tony Blair launches new drive for digital ID cards to tackle illegal immigration. Why is this interesting? Because he keeps changing the reason why we need it. Whatever is going on in the moment, in the culture, is the reason why we need it. We want to see? So he's saying this now. Tony Blair has launched a new drive for ID cards as he claims it would tackle illegal immigration. A report by the former Prime Minister's Institute published on Friday said the weakest link in the government's approach to migration was its failure to crack down on a black market fueled by unscrupulous employers giving jobs to illegal migrants. So he knows that's a hot button issue. So he's going to now try to push that button in you to get you to go along with ID cards, because if you think it's going to hurt illegal immigrants, you'll be for it.
Why did he? I mean, since when is he against illegal immigrants? The biggest neoliberal. Since when would he be against that? That's so suspicious.
That's why.
Isn't he a big global market, lower the wages for everyone guy?
He's certainly
competitive.
He's certainly a neoliberal. But here's what he said about. Here's the old reason he used to give about why we need digital IDs.
You can create a digital ID today that is much more easily protected, so you can deal with a lot of the privacy and surveillance issues that worry people. But it's a natural evolution of the way that we're going to use technology in any event.
It's a natural. This is just natural. This is how nature intended things to be.
Nature works this way. Creates a surveillance state.
Nature invented this app. Here we go.
Look, if a tree falls in the woods, is there a sound? Of course, because someone is always listening and watching.
Use technology in any event to transact daily life. And this COVID crisis gives an additional reason for doing that.
So it's because of COVID. See, before he was saying you got to do this because of COVID. What? Why? And why?
Look, I could be wrong about this, but when I look at, for example, how you restart some businesses, how you restart international travel, I think people's disease status, for example, have they been tested? What is the result of that test? Have they had the disease? Do they have the disease? I think unless you're able to record some of this data in a way that people can use, it's going to be difficult to go back to anything like a near normal in things like transport. So if you're going to start international travel again, how do you do that unless people can be easily tested and have some record of that test?
So there you go. That's him saying, how are you going to do this? You got it because of COVID. You got to have a digital ID because of COVID. So we can know if somebody has a disease or not, and we can know if somebody has the COVID. Well, now we know that. Go ahead, Kurt.
Is he the one that supposedly stuck his penis in a boar's head at Oxford? And they made Black Mirror was that him or David Cameron that was about? Remember that? Supposedly it was based on him, I thought.
I didn't see Black Mirror, so I don't know.
Oh, it was great. But that was like the first episode. It was
I'm not familiar. I never watched it.
I think it's based on Tony Blair, like some weird, and those rich, like posh schoolboy places, that's where you have to do things to prove you'll do anything.
Yes.
So
here is this guy on Joe Rogan, and he's explaining the scary side of the digital ID. And here, let's show it.
Do you feel like you're sounding the alarm
Yes.
for people that don't understand what the fuck is going on?
So here, I'll pull it up for you here, yeah? So there's the video.
Yeah.
I don't know if your camera can see that, but
No.
There's the video. There's him speaking about it.
The G7 is launching a set of public policy principles for retail central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote that could be used alongside...
Right, so that's the guy who runs our economy in the UK. His name's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And here is the article. Bank of England tells ministers to intervene on digital currency programming, yeah? And here's a quote from the article. This is in the Telegraph, the one he pulled up, but it was behind a paywall, so I'll just read the quote. Digital cash could be programmed to ensure it is only spent on essentials or goods which an employer or government deems to be sensible.
Holy shit.
Now,
So if you have a digital ID, and of course the banks are the ones pushing this the hardest, they can then control your money. Someone, not you, decides how to spend your money. Who's going to explain it? Watch this.
take it one step further for you, Joe, right? So the vaccine passport infrastructure is in place. But now we know that the vaccine doesn't stop infection or transmission, but the checkpoint Charlie exists everywhere. They bring in digital banking central.
So what he's saying is they're doing this under the guise of COVID, that we got to check to see if you're vaccinated to stop the spread. But what he just said is now we know that the vaccines don't stop the transmission or the contraction of the virus, but they still check for your vaccines. We still have these checkpoints. Why? That's what he's saying. Now, according to YouTube, I have to tell you that the vaccines do slow the transmission and the contraction. I have to say that, or they'll take down my channel. I have to
Majid Nawaz is a former radical Muslim extremist, so that's why he's saying those untrue things about the great vaccine that both stops.
That's
stops
right.
Dead. It's dead cold.
That's right.
Banking digital currencies. You've got a scenario now that you're checking in and out everywhere you go, using vouchers that are programmed and you can only spend where you're told you can spend them. There's another word for that, man. That's called the Chinese social credit system. That's what it's called. And anyone who watches Black Mirror will know what I'm talking about.
Black Mirror, I'm telling you.
Right?
Yeah.
So what they are telling us, and when I say they, who's they? People in power. That's the head of our economy, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, second most powerful person other than the Prime Minister and maybe the Foreign Secretary in the UK, right? He's telling us, I just played it there for you. He's telling us that's what he, as the UK, the head of the G7, want to bring in for the G7. So a scenario where, like in New York at the moment, because the passport infrastructure is in place, you bring in that digital currency and you've got this total control. And if I'm speaking to you the way I'm speaking now, and my employer or government, you heard that in the quote directly, yeah, deems me as saying or doing something inappropriate, suddenly I can't actually pay to come here and speak to you anymore. My digital currency won't even pay for the ticket because it will be known that I'm coming to speak to you. Sorry, your vouchers don't allow you to purchase that ticket to go and speak to Joe.
They wouldn't really do that in real life, though, would they? Would they do that? Oh, shit. They did it. Bankers freeze millions of convoy funds under Trudeau edict. The government tells the banks freeze their assets. And now they can't buy gas. They can't buy groceries. They can't buy medicine. They can't buy a plane ticket. They can't buy a train ticket. They can't buy a bus ticket. They can't move, eat, or do anything. They got you. That's what digital IDs are. And they already let the cat out of the bag last winter when they did this in Canada to truckers, to black truckers, white truckers, truckers from India with the beards and the they did it to everybody, and they called them all white supremacists.
Jimmy, who would have thought that the end thing of identity politics was going to be ID politics? That happened fast.
So if you sitting there thinking this is some kind of crazy conspiracy theory that nuts on Joe Rogan talk about, it's right in Bloomberg. This happened. It already happened. They're already doing it, and they can't wait to do it again. But people in America will never fucking protest anymore. But as soon as if we ever get a real protest in the United States that actually shuts down a city or a capital like they did in Canada, they will do that. They'll call you a terrorist. That's what they do. They called everybody at DAPL. They were called environmental terrorists. Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! Was charged with environmental terrorism. They eventually dropped it. But that's what they'll do. They'll call you an environmental terrorist, or they'll call you just a regular terrorist. And then they can do whatever they want. All they have to do is say you're a terrorist, and they can lock you up without a trial. Why? Because Barack Obama signed the NDA authorization that said that they can do that. The government can now not only propagandize you, which used to be illegal, but they can also lock you up without a charge. All they have to do is say you're a terrorist. Who's a terrorist? Anybody who's protesting the status quo is a terrorist. And because they did that to truckers. Truckers who were, by the way, vaccinated at a higher rate than the general population. Did you know that? They weren't protesting medicine. They were protesting authoritarianism, which is what this is. Key organizer denied bail over the role in Canadian blockade. Government keeping emergency powers in place for now. So they proposed a digital identity verification system for all Britons, which would be required to claim benefits or work in the United States. So you're going to have to get a digital ID in the UK. In order for you to get any benefits from the government, I guess that means healthcare or work. And then to get an ID card, individuals would have to demonstrate that they had a legal right to reside in the UK and verify their identity via the passport or equivalent document. It resurrects a plan that the former prime minister introduced when he was in government, but which was repealed as soon as David Cameron's coalition government took power in 2010, following opposition from human rights lawyers, activists, security professionals, and IT experts. So they'd already implemented something like this, and they got rid of it once already. The proposal follows a doubling to more than 14,200 in the number of migrants reaching the UK in small boats across the Channel. There are estimated between 310,000 and 500,000 illegal migrants living in the UK, on top of a backlog of more than 100,000 waiting asylum decision. The report, written by Harvey Redgrave, a former deputy director of Mr. Blair's strategy unit, said the government should create new asylum visas that people could apply for at UK embassies abroad. Embassies would be beefed up with staff to establish if asylum seekers' applications had a reasonable chance of success, and if so, they could be granted a permit to travel to the UK to have their claim resolved. The quid pro quo for the new legal route into the UK would be that anyone seeking to arrive in Britain without having applied through a managed route would be automatically deemed inadmissible. I don't give a shit about any of this. I don't care. All I care about is that he's changing the reason why they all, whatever is the zeitgeist of the day, whatever is the topic du jour, they're going to use that. That's why you need a digital ID. Lockdown was to make you accept digital IDs and vaccine passports, and so is the flood of illegal immigration. Digital ID is a cornerstone of the World Economic Forum's agenda to force you to comply with the destruction of your liberty and quality of life.
I was just thinking that same thing before you put that. I'm like, is that what the waves of illegal immigration, like, see how bad it's so many people, we probably need to ID everyone, right? Yeah. Don't you not feel safe because of the waves of immigration?
That's exactly what this is. This man is not going to give up. He wants us tagged. He stands to make zillions. Anything digital can be turned on and off at will. This is not benign. Tony Blair Institution calls for the introduction of digital IDs. Blair says time has come for Britain ID cards. This was 2005.
Does he work for an ID making company or something? Like,
right?
He's like a pitch man.
Yes. British Prime Minister Tony Blair has said that identity cards were an idea whose time has come. He said that in 2005. Wow. So what is this, 23 years later? No, how many years is that? I'm so bad with math. Is that 15 years? I don't know what math is. 5, like 10, 15, 17 years.
Oh, it's not 23. I was way off.
I was way off too. 17 years. So he's been doing this for a better part of 2 decades.
He dedicated his life to this nightmare scenario.
Yes. Tony Blair, it is common sense to move toward digital IDs. When did he say that? They said that in 2020. Just common sense. A digital ID across, this is from his institute, a digital ID across a whole range of services. Rent your home more easily. Do your mortgage more easily. Get your bank account frozen by the government for your political beliefs more easily.
What is the Tony Blair Institute? Is that where they clone more Tony Blairs to act as puppets in the, domination scheme?
That's exactly what that is, Kurt.
They've got a tank full of Tony Blairs ready to go in case he goes.
I wish someone loved me as much as Tony Blair loves ID cards.
From Marl Karks.
So they're going to push this. It's up to us to resist it. I already fucked up. I already have a digital ID.
You do?
So when I got my vaccine, they digital ID. That's a digital ID. I'm in a database, a digital ID database, which is why I got a code. They give you a barcode.
A piece of paper. They gave me a card.
So they gave me a card too, but you're also automatically entered into a friggin'.
I think your doctor enrolled you, right?
I don't know. All I know is that when I have to show my vaccine card, I show that digital thing.
Oh, that's convenient.
Oh, it's super convenient.
I could put a chip in my hand and get a soda from the machine.
So I was going to a restaurant, one of my favorite Italian restaurants. I'm not going to tell you what the name of it is because I want to be able to get a table, and I can right now. So I'm not going to tell you. Sorry. But they were the last place in California that was still checking for vaccine passports was my favorite Italian place, and it's not Bestia. So remember that we'd walk in, I'm like, you're still doing it? In June of 2022? They're still asking for vaccine, and of course you can't get mad at the person because they're just an employee. This is not their idea.
You're like, whoa, this is a high-end restaurant. Do you guys know Tony Blair? This is like an important.
So anyway, there's Tony Blair. Resist the digital IDs. Back here in Los Angeles, Bakersfield, Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our shows.